Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, and hello everyone. I'm excited and I'm fully energized to introduce you with someone I had been following for a month or now or so. So I hope and pray for your well-being. And we are starting our 125th program today on similar questions which you all know very well now, and that are to talk about life, excellence, and adversity. Today, the guest who is with me is known to be the leadership development coach. When I was reading her introduction, it says that she works upon executive coaching, life coaching, group coaching, training, public speaking, team building, corporate training, career development, project management particularly, and feather on the crown is character strengths practitioner and being the community builder. I'm feeling pleased to share with you that she has joined us live from America, Durham, North Carolina, if I'm not wrong, and I'm talking about nobody else other than Ruth Pearce. Assalamu and hello, Ruth. How are you?
It's great to be here, Shazad. Thank you for introducing me, and what a very energetic introduction you gave me. But it makes me think of when I'm teaching coaches, we say get a niche, and really focus on a specific area. And as you were listing all the things I do, I was like, I need to work on my niche, I think, because it's a bit of everything. So thank you for that.
And I was reading a book today morning here, which was 10X Rule, and in which Grant Cardone says that he's the man of everything. And it is rightly possible for us to be the man or woman of everything. Thank you once again formally for accepting my invitation. And we are going to talk about life excellence and adversity. But before we do that, I would request you to share a brief introduction from yourself, because in audience there are so many people around me on this side of the planet who might be interested to hear something about yourself in your own words. Over to you, Ruth.
Well, yeah, it's my life's over half a century long, so it's hard to do a short intro. I think the key things I would want people to know about me are, number one, I'm someone that has struggled all my life with anxiety, and it's one of my missions is to help other people see how they can excel. That's one of our topics today, how they can excel even if they're facing challenges like depression or anxiety or other mental health issues or physical challenges, or maybe it's even cultural challenges. I shouldn't say even, there's a lot of that. There are cultural challenges. So that's very important to me. The second thing is I am enormously curious. And it's a great benefit to me, because when I meet new people, I want to hear from them. I want to hear what their perspective is, what their experience of life is. And every time I do that, it enhances my own experience, because I can't experience everything like the way you do. You live in a completely different place. It's already nighttime. It's morning here. It's like, I love to get the perspectives of people in different places with different cultures, different religions, to understand how we all come together. So that would be the second thing. And the third thing is I'm absolutely passionate about character strengths. You mentioned them at the beginning, and I think we're going to talk about them some more. I think the character strengths and emotional intelligence are two things that we need universally, we benefit from universally, and they can absolutely be developed.
So with your answer to my introduction request has put me go to the format where we are going to split this talk into two major segments. One would be your corporate strength phenomena and all that character strength phenomena. And the second one would be the three questions I had requested you to answer. To start with character strength phenomena, I would like to run a 2 minutes video for the audience, and I hope you are going to enjoy it too.
There's an interesting statistic that PMI shares that we spend 90% of our time as project managers communicating with people. And social intelligence is about hitting the mark with that communication. It's understanding how people receive information, process information, what mood they're in, what distraction there might be. So it's also about listening and speaking in a way that makes sense to the other person. A question I like to ask my audience is do we spend 90% of our time communicating because that's what projects need, or because we don't hit the mark the first time? And I often ask whether people have ever had the experience of formulating the perfect email, sending out this email update on a Monday, and then you spend the whole of the rest of the week trying to recover from that email because people didn't understand what you were getting at, the piece of information they wanted wasn't there. And that, to me, is that whole social intelligence piece. One of the things I recommend is that people take the free survey online by the VIA Institute on Character to find out what strengths do they have in their arsenal, and then really to start spotting those same traits in other people. So you just do it a little and often, practice seeing the strengths in other people, and then you start to build your social intelligence. One of the questions that comes up a lot is what's going to happen in the future. We talk a lot about AI and AR, and I think one of the things we're going to see is a greater focus on our soft skills, as people like to call them, really understanding how to bring people together, build collaboration, build strong team community is going to be essential, and that's what's going to differentiate good project managers going forward. So building that muscle of social intelligence is, I believe, is critical as we go forward. Project managers very often say, well, how do I start doing this for my team? My advice is do it for yourself first, and then it ripples. It doesn't even take as much work to spread it to other people.
Wow, Ruth, it was excellent. It was excellent.
Can I let you in on a little secret, Shazad?
Yeah,
I've never actually seen that video before.
I don't believe it. I don't believe it.
I would love you to send me the link because I think that should probably be on my website. So
I can anyhow. Now again, switching back to my my favorite question, and you talked about anxiety and you talked about your previous life, and it made me recall my all the last 30 years, which made me see so many ups and downs in life. So just to put the phenomena straight and going back to the tough questions, I believe, and that would be very good for the audience to have your wisdom sharing. What when you say that you have spent your time in anxiety and that was adversity and the challenging time, let me ask you how you define adversity.
well, your first question was going to be how do I define life? And I think adversity is kind of the juxtaposition. So I've been thinking about these questions. They're very, very deep questions that I haven't necessarily paused to consider before. So thank you for that. To me, life is about constantly growing, constantly moving forward, and constantly experimenting and experiencing more. It's all to do with growth and becoming the best version of ourselves. And adversity is something that holds that back. I think adversity is anything that makes it more difficult to grow, makes it more difficult to put a foot forward. And that adversity can range from personal internal challenges like anxiety and depression and things like that, to physical challenges, to being in a war zone, to being in an area where you're in the minority and maybe you're not well respected and you don't get the opportunities. There are so many ways that adversity shows up. But to me, it is that it holds back that growth, anything that gets in the way.
Okay, that makes sense. When related to life, it makes sense that adversity serves as a pushing you back and holding you back. So we have defined in the words of Roth that life and adversity and their relationship. And then in your talk, you have mentioned the excellence that we are bound to reach the excellence level, and for that we are built. Throw some light on that.
Well, as I mentioned, I haven't seen that video before, so I'd forgotten I'd ever said that. But yes, in terms of excellence, I also think of it in terms of effectiveness. I think excellence is about bringing the best of ourselves forward, kind of igniting the best in other people, and not creating obstacles for the people around us, so that there's no the net benefit of us being in our space is that we move things forward and we improve life, that we're not holding others back, we're not presenting obstacles to other people. And that is what excellence is to me, is that we are bringing the best of us in order to engage the best of others.
Ruth, as human beings, we all are selfish, and it stands so much true for me at least that I am so much selfish when we talk about excellence and overcoming adversity and reaching excellence in my life. Why to help others to bring their best themselves in front of the others? If I'm doing all that thing for myself, why Ruth and all the other people cannot do for themselves?
Well, there's a beautiful synergy between people. So I'm fortunate enough to be working with 12 other coaches, and we're bringing a program. I wasn't going to mention this, but it's a perfect example, I think, of we're bringing a program together with the 12 of us where we're going to coach a large number of people in group coaching. And we've all taken our character strengths assessment, and if you look at each of the profiles, they're entirely different. We have a in every way you can think of, we have a very diverse group of coaches, sort of where they're from, what their experiences are, what their religions are, what you name it, and they're diverse, and it shows up in the character strengths as well. When you put all of us together, though, we have an amazingly balanced group, and we challenge each other to reach further than we would if we were just depending on ourselves. So, for example, we have one person in the group who's enormously detail-oriented. So when we're planning something, she's the one that comes back and says, have we thought about this? Have we thought about this? Have we thought about this? And frankly, sometimes she knows that sometimes it can be a little irritating. And at the same time, without it, what we produce would be less than. It wouldn't be as good as it could be. So we don't have all the strengths. We do have all the strengths, but we don't have all the strengths equally. We need the help of other people who bring another ingredient in order for us to be the best we can be. So it's very difficult to do that in isolation, I think.
So you have dragged me into the discussion of 24 character strengths you always mention, and we started with the definition of life. We jumped to the adversity. We explained what excellence is, and now Ruth has talked about character strengths. For the audience who have joined us recently, we are talking with Ruth Pearce, who is a great advocate of 24 character strengths. And for that, what I had done is that I had tried to copy a link from where you can have this free survey about your 24 character strengths. And according to Ruth, everybody of us carries all these 24 character strengths in him or herself with a different variety and magnitude. It is for us to identify those and then flourish and build on that. Ruth, you talked about the combination of who we are and how we are going to present ourselves to the other. You are going to talk something about it after discussing briefly what these 24 common character strengths are, and why this survey is important for us to identify the strengths we have.
Thank you. Yes, so at the end of the 1990s, around 1998, some psychologists, Martin Seligman and a few other people, started to ask the question about, we've been very focused in psychology on pathology. So we've looked at what's wrong with people and how do we get them from broken to sort of neutral. And Seligman asked the question, well, what is it that makes some people thrive? You know, we know there are some people who can be living in what you or I would define as real adversity, and yet they seem to flourish. They laugh, they smile, they appreciate their life, even though to us it would seem very difficult. And so what are those qualities that boost us? What are those qualities that are uplifting? And so they embarked on some research. And one of the things I love about it is that the research was about finding universal strengths. So if you go to a particular culture, a particular country, you may find other strengths that these people uphold. You know, so for example, in America, no surprise, achievement or ambition is very often regarded as a positive trait. That isn't universally regarded as a positive trait. In fact, in some cultures, it's frowned on. So that doesn't make the cut. It's all 24 strengths are ones that everyone will recognize as being positive. Social intelligence, prudence, the planning strength, forgiveness, hope. You know, there isn't any, we haven't found any groups in the world who say, no, we do not value these strengths. And then what they found was that everyone has at least a small component of each of these strengths in their makeup, in their personality. And we have some strengths that we really lean on a lot. We call them signature strengths. And for example, mine are appreciation of beauty and excellence, bravery, curiosity, fairness, and gratitude. And then we have other ones that are lower down in the profile that we still have, we can still use, but they tend to be more of a reach and they're more tiring. And what we find is when people start to know their profile, they can start to target, and it helps them be the best they can be, helps them grow, helps them reach a state of excellence, and helps them to overcome adversity because they know what tools they have in the toolbox. So I really, really love character strengths, and they made a huge difference to me as I was still working on trying to come to terms with and manage my own mental health challenges. The character strength showed me that I have strengths. I'm not a person who's just broken. I'm a person that has these strengths, these attributes that maybe other people don't have in the same way, or the same, as you said, the same sort of intensity. And that makes each of us special in yet another way. So,
Ruth, you will agree with me that life is one-time affair, and if that is the case, and if it is that much fragile that we don't know about our tomorrow, then why to rely on few of the strengths we carry? One thing, and other thing is, I'm combining 3 questions for you to answer briefly. Number 2. Is it a sin to rate the least, if anybody has, as important character strengths as leadership, love, spirituality? If someone rates in these character strengths as rank number 23, 24, is it a sin to have that number for these kind of important things? And last but certainly not least, the third part of this similar specific question is, why to depend upon others? For example, if Shahzad has identified a few specific character strengths himself, then you say that find someone who walk you through based upon your strong side. So if Ruth has identified her character strengths, why Ruth is again going to make herself dependent upon the mentors around her?
Well, you like the you like to challenge my sort of collectivism, don't you? So, all right, so let's tackle the question you asked about whether having a low strength is something that we should be concerned about. And one of the things that we often see, particularly in Western culture, is that when people get their survey, and as you mentioned earlier, you can take the survey for free and you'll get your ranking from 1 to 24 without paying anything for it. And except 20 minutes of your time to fill in the survey. So what often happens in Western culture is people get their survey, it comes in about 3 pages, and they kind of pick up the thing and they turn the pages like this until they get to the last ones from 20 to 24. And then they go, okay, those are my weaknesses. I need to work on those. Now, there's a couple of key things to remember about the survey. One is that it doesn't measure weaknesses. The survey doesn't ask questions about what you need to fix. It asks questions about what do you use most. And all that ranking says is that in terms of character strengths, that number 23, 24, 25 is not one of the strengths that you go to as a first instinct. That's not where you're driven to go. So no, I would say, no, it's not a sin not to have those strengths, and you have choices. So we know that character strengths develop because of life experience. Character strengths develop because of conscious decisions we make, like becoming a parent or getting married or joining the military or something like that. And character strengths develop as well because we decide to practice them and we can develop them. They're not fixed in stone. And so if you find that there's one that's in the lower 20, so towards 24, you do have the option of focusing on that and developing it and kind of moving it up the profile, becoming a greater friend to that strength and inviting it in more often. So that's the first thing. And then the second thing is, I don't know about you, but I'm pretty sure that the way I learned to walk was by watching other people walking. I saw them walking. I tried to mimic it. I fell down. I got up. I did it again. I probably banged my head on the coffee table, but I kept looking at what they do and trying to imitate that myself so that I could walk. And it's the same thing with strengths. If we see a strength and we're like, oh, I don't have so much of that, and I feel like I want to have more of it. Find a role model, find someone who you do see that strength in, and see what behaviors do they adopt. That's where the mentoring comes in, is what is it that they do that makes you say they're high in prudence? What is it you see them doing and saying that makes you think that they are honest? You know, that honesty is a core tenet of their being. And then you can start to experiment with those same behaviors. So it is a way to learn how to engage other strengths than are your top strengths. And also, as I came back to before, you know, taking my example of my In It Together coaches, we are not as strong as 13 individuals as we are as one unit made up of 13 parts. We are more effective, we're more imaginative, we're more creative, we are more thorough, we are more forgiving, we are more patient when we all work together than if one of us was, you know, each one of us was doing a discrete part of the project. So again, I see that this isn't to say that people should never, ever do things by themselves. I do a lot of things by myself. At the same time, recognizing that we other people help us to learn how to be different. They help us to learn how we don't want to be. I mean, I can think of examples at the moment where I'm like, okay, I don't want to be thought of like that person. So these are the kind of behaviors I don't want to adopt. You know, that we use our role models all the time. So, and then there was a third question in there as well, right, Shazad? And I can't quite remember what that was. Maybe you can remind me.
In fact, you have answered all the three parts of the question. Now, coming back to the next question, which is very important for the marital life and if the people working in a group or families. You talk about project management, you talk about the managers. Now, I'm going to talk about the project which is named Life. I'm going to talk about the managers who are named husband and wife or kids. And I'm going to ask you that if a party A has specific strengths, for example, A, B, C, and party B has strengths C, D, E, and F. As a leader in the project management team, are you going to take the husband and wife carrying similar strengths, or you make the team with diverse strengths and you think that it is the best combination? What option to go for?
Well, my kind of motto is that because people often ask me, what strengths should I have to be this? You know, if I want to be an effective project manager, what are the top 5 strengths I should have? Or if I want to be an effective teacher, which are the top 5 strengths that align with teaching? And my answer is always your top strengths used the best way they can be. There isn't a perfect recipe, I don't think. And I see my husband and I have some strengths that overlap, and actually it can make things harder for us because we almost create friction and a little bit of competition. So in terms of, you know, I've got more of that than you have. Not that we're saying it in terms of strengths, but it can actually generate some disagreement sometimes. And then we have other strengths that are very complementary. And, you know, where he's got a strength and it's not so high for me, and vice versa. And that can be really helpful at times. And again, it can cause friction because we can look at each other and say, what are you thinking? You know, why would you do that way? Why would you approach that conversation that way? Why would you talk to our daughter that way? You know, because we don't come at things from the same angle. So the key is really being sensitive and observant and appreciating. I did an exercise right before COVID started. I did an exercise where every day for 30 days, I highlighted something positive about my husband. Not specifically necessarily character strengths, but something that I appreciated. And I think I can safely say that has made our COVID lockdown experience a lot more positive, because there were days when I was struggling, honestly. You know, people get on each other's nerves, right? And so I was struggling to sort of find something, but every day before I went to bed, I'd think, I've got to find something, even if it's small. And by the end of the 30 days, I was seeing this person who's an amazing collection of strengths and positive qualities instead of the annoying guy who leaves things in the sink. You know, it changed my perspective, and that it really did help us as we went into COVID and lockdown and we don't go out so much. He doesn't travel for work anymore and all of that. I think it has made our time in COVID, and it was just a deliberate practice of spotting those strengths in him, whether or not they're ones I have or not. So.
Okay. Today, when we started talking about the program, Ruth, you have started with the definition of life, where you have said that it means to you that it is constantly growing, moving forward, learning every day, and adversity serves as a pushback to all these things internally or externally. And then you talked about the excellence, that it is bringing the best of yourself out, and then helping others to do the same, and removing all the obstacles in between. And you talked about that example of those 12 coaches having diverse background in terms of culture, religion, and all that stuff. You talked about 1998, where psychologists talked about what makes some people thrive in different situations. You talked about universal strengths all around the globe, and all the things right there. Now, the question states, Roth, that if a person wants to achieve excellence in his life, you're talking about working upon the strengths which one carry. If a person wants to be a best player in, say, badminton, and the other person wants to be a best musician, and both carry the same one character strength, that is honesty on top as number one, how one characteristic can work for reaching excellence in different domains?
Great question. So one of the things that we see with the character strengths is that there's something that we share. So they're universal, and it's like a universal language of positive attributes in people. And at the same time, the way that people manifest those strengths varies from person to person. So the way that I use appreciation of beauty and excellence doesn't necessarily look the same as the person standing next to me. As I'm listening to your example, what strikes me about honesty is that ability to self-appraise, take an honest look at, did I train enough today? You know, if I'm the athlete, did I train enough today? Did I really put my heart and soul into that? Did I commit myself? The person who's the musician, was that really as good as it can be? Did I really get the mood and intention of the composer as I played that piece of music? So there's that self-reflection that you can get with honesty, where some people might think, good enough, you know, that sounded pretty good, I'm okay with that. So I think you can really evaluate. And of course, honesty is also about authenticity and integrity. So it's bringing your authentic self to what you do, you know, and being fully there. It almost reminds me of mindfulness, that it's like being fully there in what you're doing. If you're doing your athletic pursuit, be doing the athletic pursuit. Don't be thinking about what's going on over here. If you're playing your music, be in this moment, you know, and honestly assess, am I completely here committed to playing this piece of music, or am I distracted and thinking about something else?
And this is the same thing which we have read in book The Power of Now. The writer says the same thing. Now, coming to probably the second last question before we get some online questions. The second last question on my agenda states that in this digital world and all that digital transformation and technology and all that stuff, when we talk about the whole life, the whole world is following AI and AR, you speak about the conventional things of soft skills and communication and all that stuff. You talk about becoming more expert in writing an email, comprehensive discussion in communication, choice of the words. How you compare the digital transformation with this conventional soft skills communication and all that skill set?
So to me, the thing with these tools that we talk about is just that they're tools. So AI can make repetitive, I don't want to say mundane tasks, but sort of repetitive, predictable tasks. It can make them automatic and mean that we as humans have to do less of them. AR means that we can create these amazing sort of artificial worlds and experience different things. But they're tools. We still imagine what that artificial world is that we're going to use AR to create. We still look at what will it benefit us to have something else take care of these activities so that we have more time for other things. And the other things is connection. Human beings are designed, we're wired to connect. We may not like it. Some people may deny it. whatever, but we are physiologically, neurologically wired to connect with other people. And the less distraction there is from all of these things that tools can take care of, the more time we have to invest in, am I communicating well? Is this person understanding me? Am I really hearing them? And you think of the coaching relationship, you're a coach. One of the things we really, really want to do as coaches is to make sure we've really listened and heard not just what the person's saying, but what they're not saying. And if I now don't have to worry about keeping notes and things like that, I can just be completely focused on you in that moment, then that enhances our existence. I think it gives us more opportunity to tackle big problems like, if you believe in climate change and, global warming and stuff like that, we'll have more time for our brains to engage in the really complex challenges rather than being occupied by the things that are sort of rote and repetitive.
Great of you. Yeah, exactly. Ruth, lastly, you may go touch upon the book Be a Project Motivator. You may touch upon the book you recommend, Strength Switch, written by Lee Waters, and touch upon that famous sentence you usually talk about, and that is good things ripple. How these good things are going to ripple when we talk about the definition of life amidst excellence and adversity. If I am to avoid, or if I am to overcome obstacles and adversity, and I am to reach excellence, how this makes connection with the good things ripple?
So a few ways, I think. One is we've already talked about role modeling. So when you were mentioning before about, partnerships with our spouses and our children, the behavior that you model, the actions that you take, the use of your strengths is what your children look to, and children around us, is not necessarily our own children, look to say, how do I behave in this world? What's inappropriate? I think of things that my parents did, and as I look back, if they had responded one way to things that occurred, I would be a different person. I would see the world differently. I would engage with other people very differently. And so there's that modeling aspect. So if we're modeling great use of our strengths and positive behavior, then other people are going to tend to copy that. And then the next step on from them are going to benefit from it. But what I've also seen is when we start focusing just a little bit more on other people, whether it's being kind to them, you may be facing adversity, but maybe your neighbor is facing even greater adversity, and you do something for them. You lift them up a little bit, and coincidentally, you lift yourself up, and that gives you more energy and positivity to take your next step. And so then that influences the people around you again. That if you've got more energy and stamina for a resilience to tackle what you're facing, then that benefits the people around you. You're less likely to, bite their head off because you're annoyed, or just completely sort of go and hide in a room somewhere, leaving the rest of your family to deal with whatever's happening. It strengthens you, and that means that you're stronger for the people that matter to you.
Last of all, Ruth, why adversity strikes some of us and the others live a happy life without adversity? Number one, is there anything which we can do to avoid the adversity to arrive at our doorstep? And before we close the program, do mention something about the authenticity of this character strengths phenomena, from where it comes, the phenomena, and the website and the surveys, a brief history or background about that.
You love asking compound questions, don't you? So in terms of adversity, I personally believe that the only thing that we can be sure of in the world is that unpredictable things happen. I know where I am, what's happening, who I'm conversing with right this moment. I have an idea of what's going to happen in 10 minutes time, but I don't know what is going to happen in 10 minutes time. And so we're constantly having to be adaptable. And so part of adversity is the actual experience that we have no control over. I mean, I think we can all agree that if you live in a war zone, that's adversity, and we would all find that challenging. And there's also our response to it, how we think about that adversity, how we think about the people around us and what their experience is, how we use that adversity to increase our learning potentially and get back on that growth path. So what do I learn from this? how do I treat some adversity as a challenge? And I tend not to assume that some people just go through life really happily without any adversity, because you never actually know. You don't know what it's like to walk in someone else's shoes, right? So they may look as though they have everything, they're comfortable, they have a good life, and actually they find it hard to step out of the house every morning because they have agoraphobia. So we just don't know the other person's story. And that's why being curious is so helpful, because it avoids us making assumptions and assuming that what we see is what's real. That person's reality may be very different than it looks to us. So that's one thing. And then in terms of websites and things like that, so I have my website, which is projectmotivator.com. So that's projectmotivator.com. And there's lots of resources on there. And when you send me the link to that PMI video, that will be on there too, because as I say, I hadn't seen it before. And so we have lots of stuff on there about, what we do and what the coaching is and all of that. You mentioned that I have my book, and then Be a Project Motivator, Unlock the Secrets of Strengths-Based Project Management, which is based on real experiences where I've applied character strengths with big teams. I had a very large team in the US and India. And so we had, the remoteness and the time difference and all of that. And we had to get this 110 person team to kind of really work well together. And that's in the book as well. And then it's in terms of the VIA character, if you go to viacharacter.org, and you've got the link there for the survey, but if you go to that first piece, the viacharacter.org, there's lots of free information about character strengths, what they are, why they matter, how you can engage them. And then, as I mentioned, the actual assessment is free as well. So it is our mission to have everybody find out what their character strengths are around the world.
I'm really grateful, Ruth, for your time and wisdom sharing. It was lovely talking to you. I have grasped few of the concepts which are very new for me. And let me tell you one thing, that you are 125th person to interact with on this special platform. And I have found very few with as much wisdom as you have shared. Thank you very much for your time and wisdom sharing. See you again, once again. Take very best care of yourself, and bye-bye.
And I hope you and your audience stay safe. So thank you very much.
Bye-bye. Thank you very much.